Welcome to episode 14 of the Smash Accept podcast. I'm your host, Michael Royer. You can find me on Twitter at dynasty_dadff. Joining me as usual is my main man, John and Mung. How you guys doing today? Start with you, John. Why don't you tell people where they can find you and how you've been doing?
What's up, y'all? John here. You can find me on Twitter at dynasty_trades. And been looking forward to this one here, Mike, and talking tight ends today. Get the Smash Accept crew together is always a good thing.
You know, when you talk to people, tight ends is the last position that usually comes up. Everybody wants to talk about running backs and wide receivers, but it's an exciting time right now, and this is how winning is done. I mean, we're going to talk about these tight ends and break it down, but there is a huge advantage to take care of right here right now. So,
for sure. I mean, tight end premium leagues have become pretty trendy, and in some ways, it's bringing the sexy back on tight ends. So it can become a real advantage for you in some of those leagues.
That's right. Mung, welcome back to the show. How you doing tonight?
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's good to be back talking some tight ends. As always, you can find me on Twitter at FFA_Mung. That's MENG. And I do a weekly column right now on Fantrax about dynasty buys and sells if you guys want to talk more. This week's column is going to be about running backs, so we won't get into that, but you can find that out if you read the article. But I don't think we talk about tight end enough because really they're the one position that it's the hardest to find true difference makers at. And it's really a struggle. There's a lot of analysis that goes into whether you're overpaying for a guy who's really not that different from the pack, or, finding those gems like the Kittles and Kelce's who have emerged as, those elite guys who can win your weeks.
Yeah, and Kittle's the guy we're going to talk about. I mean, tonight's episode is called Kittles Taste the Tight End Rainbow. The tight end landscape. Hey-o, dad joke city. But we're literally going to be breaking this down because the landscape has changed quite a bit over the past year, and some of the guys are really vaulting up boards, and there's just a major shakeup. I mean, obviously, we were all hit by the George Kittle news. We talked about it last week on the pod, John, that I got my first share of Kittle, and I was so excited about it, giving up Sutton and Fant, and I was like, all right, I'm ready to go. And then, I think I jinxed it. So if you guys want to throw that Twitter shade out there, blame it on the dad. I went and got Kittle. I've been that Kelsey guy for years, and I went and got him, and it's my fault. But, the news came out today. Obviously that we've heard our rosters and everything like that, but it's better than expected. Can Inman, who's like an inside reporter, said that George Kittle's CT scan showed a foot fracture to the cuboid bone and not a Jones fracture, which is huge. Right now, John Lynch told Greg Papa on KNVR radio, the recovery time is much less. And, he's going to miss our fantasy season, unfortunately, but it's not the same kind of recovery time we're talking about with a Jones fracture. And a Jones fracture typically zaps guys from their explosiveness. So
and no surgery, right?
Exactly. Yep. And according to Dustin Shute, who's a board certified doctor, I was talking with him and he said he's not going to need surgery. It's a non-weight bearing thing for 6 weeks. Then he's going to have a boot for another 1 to 2 months, no surgery, should be good to go for 2021, which is fantastic because we are at the halfway point here. And if we get something major, that Jones fracture might have carried into training camp a little bit, but it sounds like he's going to be good to go, by the beginning of the year, like beginning of 2021, not just the football season, but the actual 2021 year. So great news for the Kittle owners, that he is going to be ready to bounce back. And we're all excited about that, and that's what we're here to do today is just smash up some trades, chop it up, talk about some of these trades that you guys sent in. You guys did a fantastic job sending in trades with our Dak Prescott episode, with our Michael Thomas episode. And this is really what we're trying to do at Smash Accept is make this about you guys. Make it about the trades that you want to hear about, the trades that you want to make, the trades that you've already made, and let us, made, not maked, but that you guys have made that we can really chop up for you guys. When you guys put in hashtag Smash Accept, make sure you guys put in there what kind of league it is. Is it 10 team, 12 team, 14? Is it tight end premium? Is it super flex? Are you contending? Are you rebuilding? Put in as much information as possible. And, myself or John or Mung or Jesse or Mark, I mean, we have so many guys in the Smash Accept crew that are jumping in on trades. Hit us up in DMs. And every time you guys put hashtag Smash Accept, I'm putting that into our group chat. So you guys ready to chop up some trades?
Smash them up.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
Pre-injury here with Kittle, we were talking about 3 firsts. Am I correct?
Exactly.
He was
3 firsts.
He was a mid-second startup pick. Depending on what kind of tight end premium, he went a little bit sooner. If you were in 1.75, and that's something you guys got to put out there. Is like some tight end premiums are 1.5. You get that extra 0.5. Some of them are 1.75. Some of them I've heard as high as it's a full extra point PPR. So those are very important. But he was going for 3 firsts. And, all these trades except one, let's assume they're tight end premium because this is 2020. If you're not playing tight end premium, you should be. It just levels the playing field. That's why we play Superflex. That's why we play tight end premium. That's why we play points per carry. It all just kind of brings it all closer together for your roster construction. So the first one sent in from Jamie Thompson, listener of the show. She's at pork_19. She's in a 12-team Superflex contender, and she sent Kittle for Tom Brady, David Montgomery, Jalen Reagor. Now, I asked her afterwards because she hit me up on the DM. And guys, do this all the time. If you want more in-depth, the best analysis possible, hit us up with the DMs too after we answer your question. But she goes, right now, just so you know, I have Gronk and Waller. So I felt like Kittle was something I can move, and I'm a contender. So I really want to move into that driver's seat. So she gets Brady, who is right now going to be her QB2. She gets Montgomery, who's going to fill in as her RB2 because she was light there. And then she gets Jalen Reagor, who I know Mung absolutely loves Jalen Reagor. So we're going to start with you, Mung. Break this one down here for me. How do you think she did?
Yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense given that she does have Waller and Gronk to fill in for her contending roster. And like you said, people who have listened to this podcast in the past know that I do love Jalen Reagor. I see immense upside there. Even in his first game back against the Cowboys, he had 1 touchdown, almost had another. So he's a guy that I would look to build around in the future. And as for the Bucs, I was touting them way back in May as legit Super Bowl contenders, with Brady being a possible MVP candidate. And that was before any talk of Antonio Brown joining them. So down the stretch here, if they get a healthy trio at some point of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Antonio Brown, the sky's the limit here, and Brady could be a league winner. I love this trade. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, I was at first glance, you look at it and you're like, well, maybe Montgomery's a depth play, but Brady's going to fill in as her QB2, and she's going to have to start Montgomery, which is huge, knowing who you're going to have to play and who you're going to have to start. John, what do you think of the trade?
I'm okay with it. I'm not quite as high on it as Mung is, but I think we knew that, right, with Brady and Reagor involved in the deal.
Yeah, I told her was it doesn't look sexy on paper, right? But if she's going for a title, Tom Brady right
going
now,
for a run,
he's the
that's why it makes
QB5.
sense.
He's the QB5. Montgomery, you have a lot of. I think what really makes the trade work for me is Reagor, because you still have that upside piece. A lot of times you're trading for. You're going for a title run and you just go get a bunch of older players. But here they're still getting that nice young piece with upside. And it just kind of, it feels good. But I think next year you're going to miss Kittle. But if you win the title, it doesn't matter.
For that reason, I was going to suggest maybe shopping him a little bit more and make sure you've got the best damn deal you can get for a guy like Kittle. But if you're making a run, I get it.
And that's a smash accept rule. Like one of the guys was like, this was the best offer I got. I took the first one. I'm like, if you're shopping a Kittle or a Zeke or a Mahomes or someone that is top notch, you have to put it out there in your league chat. You got to know your league mates.
Create
and you got to say,
war.
Listen, Kittle's for sale. Who wants him? What are you going to pay? You don't take the first trade unless it blows you away. You wait and you see what you can get, because Kittle's value is not going to drop. It's not going to drop from now until next year. I mean, it's not going to drop, period. So you don't have to be in a rush, because unless you are a contending team and you're really trying to move, which is what our guy here, Jonas Frowitter at Frojohn, I like that. He traded away Kelsey for Kittle. Now listen a little bit closer. He is tanking. So he is in that Trevor Lawrence sweepstake, and Kelsey's giving him points that he doesn't need. And we talked about this with the Dak Prescott. And we talked about this with guys where you're picking up. If you are trying to tank, go get those studs on IR or go get picks. They're not going to depreciate in value. And what he did was brilliant. And this is one that I absolutely love. But he traded to the 7-1 team. He gave him Kittle or Kelsey. He gets Kittle, and now he's in a position to get Trevor Lawrence. John, I know this is one that you and I talked about before we jumped on air here. What do you think of this trade?
Yeah, so I think if I can go on a little rant, I think this immediately turns into the Kelsey versus Kittle debate, and so maybe get to that in a second. But I'm okay with it given the circumstances. It does make sense. And Mike, we were talking about you lower your potential points in a lot of leagues by this move. You just slot it into 0, and it improves your chances of getting a higher pick, right? And go get Trevor Lawrence. So I get it, but if I may, and I'd love to hear Mike and Mung what you guys think about this. I'm still electing Travis Kelce the tight end 1. All the mail-in ballots have been counted. I'm calling it. He's the 101 tight end for our country.
Well,
For
I'm
me at
glad
least,
you said
that was my vote.
because our Twitter poll, the results aren't 100% in. Trump can't refute these right now. We're talking about it's not quite set, but 47% of you guys said that the tight end 1 is Kelce now, and 40% said Kittle.
Yeah.
And we know Twitter is a bit of a mob sometimes, and they go with the recency bias. Before
sure.
I start gushing about that, Mung, is Kittle still your tight end 1?
Yeah, without a doubt. And I understand where John's coming from because Kelsey's not that old, right? He's only 31. And even if his speed falls off a little bit, he's going to be on one of the best offenses in the league until he retires, at least that we know of. And even if, he doesn't get those 100-yard games anymore, he's still going to be one of Mahomes' go-to guys, especially in the red zone. So the receptions and the touchdowns shouldn't really fall off in the next few years.
Yeah.
So I absolutely get that. But at the same time, we know George Kittle is years younger.
Yeah.
If we had to go off pure athleticism at this point, he's a better yards after the catch guy as well. And we still don't know, here's the thing, if Kittle has untapped upside because we know Jimmy Garoppolo struggled. But regardless of who's going to be at quarterback, whether it's a healthy Garoppolo one or someone else, it's possible that we have yet to see Kittle's ceiling. And I say that because he's the clear number 1 in a Shanahan offense, which utilizes the tight end a ton. And if he does get, if the Niners hit on somebody in the draft, or maybe if even they're in the Dak Prescott sweepstakes, right? We don't know what exactly is going to happen there, but the floor is, a top 3 tight end, and we still have yet to see that ceiling.
Yeah, I think the difference, and if maybe I'm guessing here, but John and me personally, I build my team with the tight end as the last piece. I don't like to draft a young tight end and kind of move it. Sometimes if I'm contending, I want Kelce. That's the thing. I mean, Kelce is the most consistent tight end for fantasy. George Kittle's the best tight end in football, bar none. No questions asked. Yeah. When you talk about complete tight end, because he's a blocker, he does everything that you need to do. Kelce's the best receiving tight end, in my opinion, because he's on that Chiefs offense. That's the guy I want. And if you look at, I saw today on Twitter, 2019 versus 2020, if you do his projection for this year versus what he did, I mean, it's the staple of consistency. 136 targets, on pace for the exact same. Last year, 97 receptions, on pace for 96. Last year, 1229, on pace for 1220. It's that positive TD regression where he's at 5 last year. Now he's on pace for 12, and that's the difference right now for me is Kelce. I like to take my tight ends for 1 to 2 year windows, play them when they're there. And I have no arguments with what you said, Mung. That was great information. What's going on right now is if I am tanking, if I'm in a rebuild, John, I got a fever to get George Kittle. Do you know what prescription is?
More trades, baby. Trades.
It's that cowbell, baby. So
more cowbell.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit more high tech here on the Smash, except we're getting a little bit of a soundboard. But that is the move to make. If you are a contender and you have Kittle, flop the 2. Because I feel like if someone's not in that position to contend, you give them Kittle, you get Kelce, you win the championship, you win. If you're on the other side and you're tanking and you have Kelce and your team's not very good, move up and get Kittle. Now you win. It's a win-win. And that's what our guy here did fantastically. I got to say, shout out to you. That was a fantastic trade. And that's how winning's done, Jonas. I love it. The next trade sent in for Sosa. He's at FF_Sosa. He said he needs urgent help on this one. 12-team, PPR, Superflex, tight end premium. He's going to give up Kittle and Jalen Hurd. So let's just call it Kittle because at this point, Jalen Hurd might as well be cut. I mean, Brandon Ayuk is exploding. Debo's there. and Kendrick Bourne's actually a better player. And he's receiving Josh Allen, Kerryon Johnson, and Mark Andrews. Now, Twitter still has this at 42% Kittle, but on my end, this feels like a smash accept where you're getting Josh Allen, who is right now a top eight quarterback. Kerryon Johnson, okay, but you're getting Mark Andrews, who's still, in most people, and according to our Twitter poll right now, he's the tight end 4 on the season. He's more like the tight end 14. I'm pretty bullish on this deal that I would give that up. He is trying to still contend. So he's getting Mark Andrews. He's getting Josh Allen. Help me out with this one, guys.
Yeah, I might ring that cowbell again there, Mike.
Oh,
I would do it. I'm pausing to let you.
Oh, we're going back to the cowbell. Hey,
yeah,
we're back
there
to
you
it.
go. There it is. I wanted to make sure we got that in for this one. No, for Josh Allen and
it's
Andrews.
a good trade.
Yeah, I'm taking that.
It's basically a 2-for-1, and then who knows what? I mean, Kerryon. He's still young. I'm not writing him off. He's a guy
might land somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. By the time he gets to free agency, he's still only going to be 23 years old. Mung, any quarrels with this deal?
No, I think the value is definitely on that package side. Again, Allen and Andrews have both struggled a little bit in the last few games, but I still do believe in both of their talents. But I will say I don't think that this is necessarily a loss for whoever's getting Kittle, though, because they mentioned it's tight end premium, and Andrews is more of a touchdown guy, so that premium scoring doesn't really help him as much as it does a guy like Kittle.
For sure.
So again, the value's there, and I would do that in a contending team for sure. But I think it's still a fairly even deal.
Yeah, and it just comes across as what we're going to talk about on the show is if you are not contending, make the offers for Kittle. Go get it. Also, when you're doing a super flex trade, my number one rule is if I give up a quarterback, I want a quarterback. If I'm giving up Josh Allen, I don't care if it's a back end guy like I did that deal I was talking about where I got Kittle. I got him to throw in Phillip Rivers because I gave up Daniel Jones. If I'm giving up a quarterback, I don't care if it's Dwayne Haskins. I don't care if get a quarterback thrown in the deal because look what we're looking at now. I mean, Chase Daniels is going to start because Matthew Stafford's come down with COVID. There's so many quarterbacks that just, and I was talking to John, what I do with those kind of things is teams that had Matthew Stafford, I went out as soon as I got the news and I picked up Chase Daniels in every super flex league I'm in. And I put out there and I said, hey, I have a 3rd round pick next year. You guys give me a second. I'll give you Chase Daniels in a 3rd. And I'm getting a lot of different offers from that. Upgrade your picks. Be savvy with that kind of stuff on that news. But quarterbacks,
yeah, Nick Mullins.
Right yes. Now. Yeah, absolutely. And whoever's going to start for Dallas because they got I mean, I went out and picked up Cooper Rush everywhere. They're talking about him. Now they've gone to, Jarrett. Like they're just coming up with names. I mean, next thing
even as an Eagles fan, you have to feel kind of sorry for the Cowboys.
I never feel sorry for the Cowboys, but I mean, maybe Troy Aikman will roll out there this week. Let's move on to our next trade here. Another big fan of the show. I talk to this guy very regularly, Chris Oxford at CS_Oxford or Orford, sorry. 12-team tight end, super flex, PPR, all the normal. Kittle. And I know, Mung, you responded to this one as well, and you have dialogue with this person as well, is he gave up Kittle, and we're getting Ingram, Judy, and a 3rd. He said his other tight ends right now are Jimmy Graham and Jack Doyle, so he's kind of hurting a little bit, and he wanted to still contend. So is Ingram, Judy, and a 3rd enough for George Kittle? Mung, I know you answered this one on Twitter, so I know your answer. I'm going to go to John first here. Is that enough? Evan Ingram right now falls in as like the tight end 8. He's criminally underused. I mean, right now he has an ADOT of 5 yards.
Yeah.
He is one of the most athletic. He might be one of the biggest buys if you're not contending other than Kittle. Ingram has such a high ceiling from what he's shown in the past, but that team's a wreck right now.
Oh, it is. And I actually responded to this one on Twitter too. And I said that this was not enough for Kittle. And I believe that Mong was guiding the same thing.
Yeah.
I said, hey, turn that 3rd into maybe 21 first or get something more out of it. That's what my advice was. Look, Ingram is a major step down right now. For whatever reason, just not involved enough, not getting it done. He does not have a receiving touchdown this year yet. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he's got the 1st round pedigree.
One that was called back, and it was like,
oh, okay. And I think he has maybe a rushing touchdown, but I mean, that's concerning.
Yeah.
But he's super talented. He went like number 23 overall back in 2017, first rounder. I love Jerry Jeudy. When I'm looking at Kittle, I think I get more out of this one.
I think the problem here is you get into a situation where you got Kittle, right? And I have him in that other league, and I'm going to keep referencing this. And people, they know that last year I went 13-1 and lost in the ship. So I'm all in, like I was trading all off season to get those other pieces. And right now I'm in contention to win again. And I got offers for Waller straight for him. Someone offered me Ingram in a second. Somebody offered me Mark Andrews even. We get into a dilemma sometimes of underselling, right? Like, oh, I got to win the championship. And if you do that with Kittle, you're going to really regret it because Kittle is the tight end 1 or 2, depending on where you look at things. And if you're giving that up and you're not getting Waller plus or Hawkinson plus or Andrews plus, you're going to feel it next year. Mung, am I right on that? Or what are you looking to get here?
Yeah, like John said, I think I replied to this one on Twitter. I would want a little bit more value here as well. That said, I don't mind underselling Kittle for win now pieces, but the problem with this deal is I just don't know how much Jeudy and Ingram help you win now because, of course, Jeudy had a big game this past week, but Tim Patrick's coming back at some point. So that's still, we don't know what that target share is going to look like.
Yeah. And
to John's point, Ingram doesn't have a touchdown yet. And we just don't know if this Giants offense is going to get better this year.
Right. If this is a deal to get, if there was another deal where someone dealt a very similar type thing, and instead of Jeudy, he got Calvin Ridley. Now, I know he's banged up, but that's the kind of move where if you want, I love Jeudy, but that second piece, Ingram's got to be a better tight end than that. There's got to be a tight end that's going to help you win. And we're not even sure if Ingram's we're going to talk about a lot of bargain bin tight ends at the end. And Ingram might not even be that guy. I mean, he is not in that realm, what we're looking at somebody to win you a title right now. I mean, you'd be better off getting Gronk and Jeudy in a second, because then you have an opportunity to actually win the championship and then have a guy like Jerry Jeudy where you're not going to feel quite as bad. That you might get best of both worlds where you win it and you got that young upside piece. Next one sent in from Jeremiah McMillan at J McMillan 54. He said that he was going with Noah Fant, Melvin Gordon, and a mid to late 21 second for Kittle in a 10-team league. Now, I think the 10-team league here changes it a little bit. This is almost identical to what we were just talking about, right? He's got a win now piece in Melvin Gordon. He's got a fantastic upside tight end in Noah Fant, and he gets a mid to late second. But we're talking about a 10-team league here where studs matter even more, which makes this one super tight for me. Mung, let's start with you on this one. This one feels really tight to me. I mean, is this something that you'd be willing to do? It's a contender. Melvin Gordon's a depreciating asset. Noah Fant's an ascending asset. Can we do this one?
No. I like Fant, but Philip Lindsay's getting more involved now that he's healthy. I don't know that Gordon's more than a flex the rest of the way unless Lindsay misses time again. Again, I don't mind selling for Fant plus, but I just think the other pieces would need to either help now a little bit more or be worth a little bit more that you could then flip for something else that could help you now.
Yeah, and it's great that Jeremiah put that it's a 10-team league because this is a 14-team league. I'm doing it. If it's a 12-team, I'm on the fence. If it's 10, I'm still saying I keep seeing trades where it's like, should I give up these 4 players for Christian McCaffrey or give up the depth isn't as important in a 10-team league because you have those guys there. John, what do you think?
Game changers.
Yeah,
I would push your cowbell a little further away. I'm staying away from this one.
Yeah, the cowbell. It's out. It's over there in the corner right now. Yeah, so it's not the worst trade, but we're going to stay away from that one. Jason Moore sends in a deal, and not Jason Moore from Fantasy Footballers, but at Coach J Mayo. He said Kittle straight up for Diggs. Now, this is, to me, another version of underselling because Diggs is approaching that 28-year-old season, I believe. And, a 28-year-old wide receiver versus a 28-year-old tight end. One of them's at, the top of the class. Diggs is probably in that wide receiver, 10 to 15 range when it comes to dynasty. I feel like you can get more.
I think you might regret doing that deal.
Yeah,
for Diggs.
Yeah, absolutely. That one was a little bit easier. And I got one more Kittle here before we shake things up. At Steve, and I love when you guys put like 47 numbers in your Twitter handle, 979-23103. That might be like a prison code or a license plate. I'm not quite sure. but he's sending Akers and Chenault for Kittle. He's getting Kittle. To me, let's be honest, this is how winning is done. If you can give up Laviska Shenault, who I know Jesse's all about, and you can give up Akers, who's, struggling to get usage, and get Kittle. So you're giving up, a back end RB2 and kind of get those kind of things. Talk to me about that deal a little bit.
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I actually would definitely take Kittle in that deal. I do believe Akers is going to be a really nice asset, and so it doesn't kill me either way. It's a pretty even trade, but for sure Kittle is the asset that I want in that one. What do you think, Mom?
I think those numbers in his Twitter handle are code for #SmashAccept, because I don't think this one's even close. But I was never as high on Akers as I think you are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've seen enough from Darrell Henderson to think that this could just be a committee going forward. It's certainly possible that Akers will still take over that lead role. I do think he's a good running back. But I don't see him being utilized as a workhorse like Gurley was for a couple of years there. This one's pretty clear to me.
We just went back to the cowbell, Mike. One last ring there, maybe.
I had to run out of the room because I got so excited about the next part of the topic. Let's talk about this here a little bit. I'm going to get bold with you guys. TJ Hawkinson, to me, if he keeps up the pace that he's on, will be in that same tier as these guys next year. And hear me out here a little bit, okay? Kittle is going to be 28 years old. Kelsey, he's going to be 32. So TJ Hawkinson right now ranks as the tight end 4 through the first 8 weeks. Having a fantastic season. Obviously, hopefully we're going to lock on to him here a little bit more with Stafford out. But Galladay's banged up. I feel like he could really have an incredible second half. He's on pace. Right now he has 41 targets, 29 receptions, 321 yards, 4 touchdowns, which puts him on pace for 58, 650, and 8, which would make him last year. That would have been the tight end 4. He's on pace for that tight end 4 this year. So that puts him in a spot where he's 23 years old. He's going to be entering that 24-year-old season. Kittle at 23 was still in college. So his 24-year-old season was his rookie season where he went 43, 515, and 2, and then he exploded that next year, where that was the year where we were all like, that's the guy you got to have. It was 90 plus receptions, 1,375 yards. I mean, he balled out. Right now, you get Hawkinson at a discount. What I'm trying to do, if I have Kittle and I'm contending, and I've already done this made some offers, I am trying to get TJ Hawkinson in a first. We talk about it on the trade show all the time. It's an insulated trade. I think Hawkinson is the next Kittle. I think he's that next guy to explode. And if you buy him before he does that, we all know year 3 is the breakout year. He's already starting to break out, and he looks like a true game changer at the tight end position. He's 5 years younger than Kittle. I'm bad at math, but 8 years younger than Kelsey. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe TJ Hawkinson, and I have him ranked as my tight end 3. Preseason, I had him as my tight end 5, and I actually got laughed out of the room a lot of times. The only guy that seemed to really agree with me was my man, Goat District. What do you guys think about TJ Hawkinson, the season he's having, and the upside of him potentially being in that same tier as those guys next season? I know it's bold.
I apologize in advance for raining on your parade here. I have no issue if a contending team lost Kittle and they sell Kittle for Hawkinson in the first, because I do think that Hawkinson's going to be a solid tight end 1, especially in PPR formats. I just don't see the elite ceiling for him. Like you're saying that he's going to be in that Kittle and Kelsey tier next year. And that's where I'm not on board, because to your point, Hawkinson is the tight end 4 on the season. Mm-hmm. But when you look at the actual points scored, he's around 87 points in PPR, and that's a lot closer to the second tier with Tunyon, Hurst, Andrews, Jonnu, all in that 80-point range, versus Kelsey, who's at 143 points. And then Kittle had almost 100 points, even missing, 2.5 games.
Right.
So to me, with Kenny Golladay likely still there, we don't know if Matt Patricia is going to get fired at some point.
Hopefully.
Right. But there's just a lot of uncertainty with the Lions moving forward.
Right.
And to me, I just don't see Hawkinson as, one of the centerpieces of the offense. He'll certainly be involved, but I just don't see him reaching that elite tier. For me right now, for the foreseeable future, it's still Kittle and Kelsey.
See, for me, he is being that Iowa tight end, those are the guys, and he is one of the most complete tight ends. They're just using him a lot more in the red zone. And I see it. I know a lot of people he's under the radar for some, others absolutely love him. John, what do you think of TJ Hawkinson?
Yeah, I think I am actually closer to where you're at on TJ Hawkinson, Mike, and I can absolutely see putting him at tight end 3. I do hesitate a little bit to put him in the tier of Kelsey and Kittle, but I maybe challenge Mung a little bit. I think the ceiling really could be really high.
I think it's
more of
a Kelsey type than he is a Kittle.
I think so.
As
just like you said,
red zone ability and everything like that.
Yeah, he is just so hard to cover. He's that do-it-all type of prospect. Remember, he was drafted number 8 overall.
So was Eric Ebron. Same team.
Yeah, fair enough. That aside, I remember he was the nation's top tight end in 2018 as a redshirt sophomore at Iowa. And he's always going to be on the field. He's a great blocker. 6'5", 247, hard to cover. I remember Matt Waldman had him as his top tight end prospect coming out and got my attention.
Yeah.
And he's starting to show us what he can do. So could he if I look at all the tight end prospects, he just feels like one of the guys that could maybe make it up there to that tier. He's not there yet, but your point is dead on, Mike.
If he
just grab this guy now.
Yeah. Because when we're talking startups next year, it's all about team build. And we're talking about now, I still think Kittle's there, but you got to really think long and hard where Kelsey's probably going to fall into that 3rd round and Hawkinson's going to be maybe 4th round, 5th round. And it's 9 years difference. After Kittle goes in the early part, you got to start thinking about how you want to build your team with your tight ends. And let's get into some trades because there was a lot of TJ Hawkinson questions out there right now. Thank you for letting me be bold and do my little rant there. Usually I just take the host chair and let you guys talk it up. But right now we got some deals out there. The first one sent in from Scott Ferguson 1. He said this is a dynasty Oregon rebuild in a 14-teamer. He got TJ Hawkinson or Henry Ruggs and what will be the 113 or the 114. So in a 14-team tight end premium. So we got to think about the team build here again, where the positional advantage from the top 3 to 4 to tight end 14 can be absolutely huge. Twitter had it at 67% Hawkinson, 33% Ruggs in a first. Are you guys in agreement with Twitter?
I am for sure. I would definitely want Hawkinson in that deal. You always want a first or a late first. And Ruggs was also considered kind of a late first, right? So
yeah.
It's not terrible. It's okay value, but I want the better prospect here.
Mung, you were a little bit lower on Hawk. Is this good enough for you to get the deal done?
I think it's pretty close in value. Hawkinson, this being a 14-team league, is obviously a little bit more valuable, so I would lean that side. But we've seen some flashes from Ruggs, and its value is going to continue to rise as the season progresses as well. So I think it's pretty fair value, but I would lean Hawkinson because it is a deeper league.
All right. Next one sent in from Tyjapot at Tyjapot. He sends in full 12-team PPR tight end premium, DJ Moore and Robert Woods, and he is a contender, or Sutton, Hawkinson, and a second. So this one becomes a little bit more, we don't have all the details there. You guys know I love DJ Moore, but DJ Moore and Robert Woods or Sutton and Hawkinson. I'm thinking the Sutton Hawkinson side is probably a little bit more rebuilding. So I feel like since he's contending, he went after Moore and Woods. Are you guys okay with this deal? Or is this one where you feel like next year this one could bite?
Yeah, I don't love it. It's not terrible, but I think Moore and Sutton are fairly close in value for me. We're seeing Drew Lock throwing downfield with pretty decent success so far, and Tim Patrick's had some good games here, but Sutton should still return as that clear number 1 guy once he's healthy next year. And then given Woods' age, and then Goff's been spreading the ball around and just not looking great, Not very efficient for the Rams offense in general. I would take Hawkinson over Woods straight up, and that 3-second.
Yeah, that's the understatement of the year. Did you guys see the game Cooper Kupp had? 21 targets. I've never seen somebody get 21 targets and come away with 11 receptions and 100 yards, and people acted like it was a good game. I mean, you're talking 5 yards a target. That's rough. And Goff looks a little bit on the rough side. John, is this enough for you? It seems like, which side do you want? You're contending, obviously you want DJ Moore, but do you feel like next year this is something that, I know you and I are on the Jerry Jeudy's the wide receiver one in Denver kind of train, but what do you think of this trade?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty even, but I still slightly lean towards the Hawkinson side. And you know that I haven't been quite as high on DJ Moore. Look, if you're contending, maybe you make a run with him and Woods. Yeah. But I'm kind of with Mung. I don't really love it.
Yeah, I think the second round pick's on the wrong side here.
Yeah, this one I absolutely love. My man Tyler Thiel sent in at Thiel12. He just lost Kittle. Okay, so he's thinking, and he's not saying I'm dealing Kittle. What he did was my man swung for the fences, and he got Hawkinson, TJ Hawkinson for DJ Chark and Mike Davis. Mike Davis is going to be a back burner piece here by as soon as maybe this week, maybe next week when McCaffrey comes back. DJ Chark and Hawkinson in a 12-team league, which is tight end premium. I feel like my man nailed it here. John?
Smash accept. Get that cowbell up, Mike.
Cowbell's going, baby. Woo! Yeah, I feel like this is the way to do it. I mean, he's going to go into next year in a 12-team tight end premium with what I'm thinking is the tight end 1 and the tight end 3, or tight end 2 and tight end 3. He's got 2 top 5 tight ends now, where I do think DJ Chark is a low-key buy right now. I think Jake Luton's going to be throwing him the ball because Minshew missed him bad a lot. And I was watching games, and there was a lot of frustration with Chark. But I feel like this is a great move here, and I got to applaud you on this one, Tyler. I mean, you're going to go into next year with both Kittle and Hawkinson. Now let's move on to last year's TJ Hawkinson, the guy who we all wanted to be he was that Twitter darling, Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews was what everyone was saying was the tight end 3, and saying the exact same thing that I'm saying is he's going to join that tier if he has a good year this year. Right now, he sits as the tight end 14, right behind Logan Thomas. Yep, I said that. Logan Thomas. The Ravens offense is struggling. Let's talk about some of these kind of trades we have going on. The first trade sent in from Mac_FF Ball sends in, he got Hawkinson and Myles Gaskin for Mark Andrews in a second. Are you taking Mark Andrews in the second, or are you taking Gaskin, who this may or may not have been before the injury? We obviously know he's out there. And Hawkinson. What kind of deal are we making here? Mung, break it down here for me a little bit.
This one seems pretty fair to me. I think Hawkinson and Andrews are in that same tier. As we talked about before, the Ravens offense has struggled a little bit, but Andrews is still, one of Lamar Jackson's favorite targets. I do think he'll be all right long-term. And then, a second-round pick for Gaskin seems fair. He's been a workhorse when healthy this year. So for a contender, I think you would take Hawkinson and Gaskin. And if you're rebuilding, I have no issue with selling Gaskin and flipping Hawkinson for Andrews here.
I totally agree with that. And I love when a trade comes together, and kind of like the Kittle for Kelsey thing, where the contending team gets what they want. I always say the best dynasty teams have 2 or 3 teams that are in that championship run, 2 or 3 in the middle, 4 or 5 there towards the end. My math's not good, but obviously it would be good 4, 4, and 4. But your best dynasty leagues are set up where you got true contenders and you got true rebuilders. And then you got a couple guys that aren't quite there. And this seems like a perfect move, like you said, for a guy who wants to rebuild, and then another guy who wants to go for a title run. Another, at IDP_fantasy fleas sent in. Now he's playing in a 10-team non-PPR. So he's playing like it's 1997. It's complete dinosaur, but he's Mark Andrews or David Montgomery in a second. John?
Was it tight end premium?
Nope. It's no PPR, no tight end premium. It's as vanilla as you get.
Okay. Yeah. I think that we've kind of stated the concern. What's interesting about Andrews, I'm going to come back to a point, just kind of a side point I want to emphasize here, is Andrews is clearly considered one of the higher tight ends, but he's really not getting those receptions. Mung was right. I mean, he's looking very touchdown dependent right now. And so be careful with that in your scoring format. Uh, he's really in a non-tight end premium league. He's just not super exciting. If you need a running back, I'm okay picking up Montgomery, but I don't love Montgomery either. So I'm struggling with this one a little bit. They're in a 10-team league. I could go either way on it. I guess that tells me that it's somewhat even. Not a strong feeling on that one.
Twitter had it at a blowout of Mark Andrews at 64 and David Montgomery as the second at 36%. But sometimes I think Twitter, and I love you guys on Twitter, don't get me wrong, but sometimes we just see the names and don't read the cues. And that's why here at Smash Accept, we're literally trying to break it down as much detail as possible. When you're looking at that, it's a tricky type situation because is Mark Andrews in a 10-teamer that's not tight end premium? Yes, he scores the touchdown, so that might elevate him a little bit more so than our true pass catchers because we're trying to get those guys that do catch touchdowns. So it's a tricky one, Mung.
I think Twitter got this one right. I think they nailed it. This is Andrews pretty easily for me because, as you said, he is more touchdown dependent, which actually gives him more value in non-PPR because, the 5-6 catches from Kittle don't count for anything if it's only, 40, 50 yards. Yeah. And then for Montgomery, in a 10-team league, he's not that great. He's a, flex play maybe. And his value has been pretty dependent on PPR with the receptions as well because the Chicago offense really isn't doing much on the ground. So, I don't see Montgomery as a great piece in non-PPR either. So I would rather take a shot that Andrews and the Ravens offense is going to rebound here, especially in that shallower 10-team format.
Yeah, I find it very ironic that the guys from last year and this year's draft, Montgomery last year, Taylor this year, where their biggest concern coming out was catching passes. And that's what's holding their value up right now. I mean, Jonathan Taylor struggled. David Montgomery has struggled, but he's actually third in the NFL in running backs in routes run. I mean, who would have anticipated that? But that Bears offense is just struggling. And yeah, no, I get it either way. As far as the tight end landscape, we put it out there for you guys on Twitter, and you guys obviously, you came up with Kelsey 1 and Kittle 2. And then, I said Hockenson 3, but you guys said Darren Waller 3. Is there a more underrated tight end than Darren Waller? He was the tight end 2 last year in tight end premium. Now he's the tight end 3. He leads all tight ends in targets. He is still that centerpiece of the Raiders offense. We all wanted to believe Bryan Edwards. We all wanted Henry Ruggs. We're like, he was a guy that everybody said Waller was going to disappear a little bit. Darren Waller was someone that I picked up in the offseason with all the hype. I was getting him for second-round picks all over the place in tight end premium, and it's paying off right now. I mean, he's 40 points behind Kelsey, and no one's even close after that. He's 20 points above Hockenson. Right now, he's about, if you take the tight end 12, he's 60 points ahead of the tight end 12. So if you have Darren Waller, you have an advantage at that tight end position. Do you guys feel that the tight end 3 is where Darren Waller begins or belongs? And is that a guy that, right now, if you have Kittle and you want to get that guy to push you over the top, are you willing to pay a first-round pick for Darren Waller? John, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I have Waller in that tier with Andrews and Hockenson.
Yeah.
And I think he's right there. I'm actually really impressed that Twitter had him that high.
Yeah, they nailed it.
A lot of times, he seems underrated a lot of times, to your point, Mike. I mean, I was picking him up in the preseason before last season started. I'm so glad that I did, especially in those tight end premium leagues. He's just a mismatch, athletic freak. He is 28, and people get worried about the age, but he doesn't have much tread on the tires, right? He wasn't really even in the league. I love his comeback story. He's in an offense where Gruden loves to revolve around the tight end and the running back, right? And so he's going to continue to get fed. He's scoring more touchdowns this year. So would I trade a first rounder for Waller? Yeah, if it was like a mid to late first rounder for Waller and I'm contending, I would do that. And it gives you that positional advantage.
Yeah, I mean, we got to look at this here. Kittle and Waller are the same age. We look at last year, and they were 3 points off in fantasy. And I'm not saying they're the same player. In no way, shape, or form am I saying Darren Waller is George Kittle. He was outperforming in this year. Last year, they almost had the same. They have the same age. But we all put Kittle as he cost 3 firsts, and we're debating if Darren Waller's worth 1 first. And I'm not saying that they're the same player, but I'm saying he is that underrated piece that can get you a championship for, I think if you have that 110 to 112, you put that first round pick down, and I feel like he's a guy that's going to win you a championship. Mung?
Yeah, Waller is a guy that I'm sorry to admit that I missed on this offseason. I actually wrote about how it would be tough for him to maintain this kind of target volume with Ruggs, with Edwards, how much they wanted to run, but really none of it matters because Derek Carr loves throwing to him. And at the end of the day, that's really what matters, right? Target volume, target share, red zone usage, those are all important things for tight ends. And, I actually just made a trade today. I know I talked to you guys about it earlier where I sold Amari Cooper for Waller and an early second-round pick in a league where I just lost Kittle. And I do see him as, a top 5 guy for the foreseeable next couple of years.
Yeah, and he's a great guy to pick up for your stretch run. John and I talked about it last week where we want to break down what kind of schedule they have. I mean, if you're talking about picking up a guy like Darren Waller, you want to know does he have a cushiony schedule? And we're looking at, he has 1, 2, 3, 4 top 10 weeks, against bottom 10 defenses. He's going to get the Chargers in week 15. He's going to get Miami in week 16. He has got some cushion matchups coming up. He's got Atlanta, when you're pushing on there. Darren Waller, I feel like, is a great buy if you lost Kittle and you don't want to give up Kittle. I feel like you might lose out if you get Waller plus, but if you can get Waller for a first round pick, or you can, ship off, you might have some depth at wide receiver or running back. This is a guy you can get cheap, and I feel like he's still going to put up those numbers next year where he's still going to be a top 5 dynasty tight end. And you guys can take that one to the bank. I think Darren Waller is a league winner. Yeah,
his late breakout kind of reminds me of Delaney Walker, who a lot of people were hesitant to believe in. But, if you picked up Walker for 2-3 years, he was a top 5 guy.
Yeah. And the thing is he was free in the offseason. There was that little bit of hype, and you hear those things, and you got to have those kind of tight ends on your roster. A guy we're going to talk about later was one of those guys that I got absolutely for free in all my leagues, and that was, Logan Thomas. There was some buzz about him. There was some things going on. Again, another late breakout kind of guy, but he's having a low-key good season here, and we're going to talk about him. But before we do that, are you guys in agreement then? Twitter has Andrews as tight end 4, Hawkinson as tight end 5, and Noah Fant as tight end 6. After that, they get really dicey of who everybody likes. The Twitter poll was all over the place, but it seemed like that was their tier. They had those tier of those 4 guys. John, you didn't have Fant in there, but he's approaching that list, and that seems to be how Twitter has it. Where do you guys have that top 6?
Yeah, I actually have Goddard right there at 6 for me, just behind, like we said, Hawk, Andrews, and Waller.
Yeah.
So I have Goddard just above him. You're a Philly guy. You know that he could absolutely be the heir apparent to Zach Ertz. They love throwing the ball to the tight end. They run a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends. With or without Ertz, I think it's pretty clear Goddard is going to be the man. He's 25, and he's drafted in the second round, so he's got some of the pedigree. I think that he's just a notch above Noah Fant for me, just to speak on Noah Fant. I also look, Noah Fant is a complete athletic freak. We remember when he ran the 4.5 40.
Yeah.
He's 6'4", 249. That's like a running back 40 time.
Mm-hmm.
He's number 20 overall in one of those classic Iowa tight ends. But I just don't know. One little concern is Albert O. I think we're going to give up on the last name. Albert O is what we're calling him.
Yeah, we're not pronouncing that. No.
Yeah, I did look it up. So Fant ran this past week, as an example, ran 33 routes to Alberto's 12. So, okay, maybe it's not as big of a concern, but he's getting those red zone looks, and that's what you start to worry about. That Noah Fant isn't going to be as much of a factor in the red zone as Dallas Goedert, we know he is. They love targeting tight ends in Philly in the red zone. It seems like Zach Ertz was like 8 touchdowns every season there for a while, or 6, 7, 8 touchdowns. That's what I think we can expect for Goddard too. And so that is kind of what I used as a slight edge to him over Noah Fant.
Yeah, John, it sounds like we almost have the exact same top 8 instead of tiers here. Kelsey, Kittle in that top tier by themselves. And then the next tier with Hawkinson, Hawkinson, Andrews, and Waller, depending on how you guys want them. I mean, I have Hawkinson 3, but I have no problem with Waller 3. You know, those 3 guys are interchangeable. And then to me, I had it that next tier. I had it as Fant and Goddard. You know, like I put them in their own.
Mhm.
I wasn't quite ready to put them in the same level as Hawkinson, Andrews, or Waller just because of past production, but I can see it. You know, those are the top 7. Mung, any disagreement there or any different of thinking? I know, you know, sometimes you bring us down here a little bit and try to make us think a little bit more, and I love that about you. How's that sound to you? I mean, is that where you're seeing the top 7, or do you have anybody else to add into that top 7?
Yeah, I think that's about right. I would have Goddard, you know, a little bit higher like John does. But I guess the other name that I would consider sliding in there, even if it's at the back end, would be Jonnu Smith.
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, his numbers have been down since Corey Davis has come back healthy. So the target share is lacking. But if we're talking about pure explosiveness, pure talent, I think Jonnu might be, you know, he's in that Hawkinson top 3-4 range. We've seen what he can do. He just, you know, Tennessee isn't throwing to him as much. Tannehill's been focusing on Davis, and A.J. Brown, of course, is there. But if we saw 8-10 targets for Jonnu Smith every game, I think he would be top.
Yeah, no, I agree there. I actually had him as my tight end 8, and I think that's a great addition there. You know, and I feel like this is the tight end landscape. These are the guys you want to go after. If you're going to make a Kittle trade that you're not going to regret, it's got to be one of these 7 or 8 guys. Otherwise, I feel like you're really going to regret it unless you really upgrade at another position. Couple other guys, you know, I'm going to just bring up, and then I want you guys to, that next tier gets very dicey. You know, some people it's very polarizing. Some people really love them. Other people think, you know, that they're on the opposite spectrum. And that's, you know, Evan Ingram, Hayden Hurst, Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, Zach Ertz. Those guys are some of the most polarizing tight ends because you get guys like Gesicki who put up 2 and then they put up 29, you know, and Ertz is on the wrong side of 30. He's a little bit banged up. Hunter Henry, very touchdown dependent, but he's in a great offense. Hayden Hurst, right now he's the tight end 5 again, having a nice little breakout season. And then Evan Ingram, we've seen what he can do, but it's just not happening this year. Talk to me about some of those guys. You know, I mean, who do you see anybody from that group really emerging and putting themselves into that next level up, or are you buying any of these guys?
Yeah, I think in general, my philosophy would be if you're not getting one of the elite guys, then pay for the cheapest one in these lower tiers because they're all fairly similar. I just don't see enough to separate any one of them from the others. The only name I'll bring up real quick would be Zach Ertz because everyone's really down on him and he has looked slow. He has not looked great. But at the same time, if you're a contender and if you can snag Ertz, I think some are selling him for a 2nd-round pick at this point, right? He's older. He did not look great, but the target share might still be there for him once he comes back because he has been Wentz's safety blanket for a few years now. The rapport is there. And part of the issue was when Rager and Jackson were hurt and when Fulgham hadn't broken out yet was that defenses just blanketed Ertz. So he couldn't really do anything. But having these options back actually opens up the offense and the underneath stuff for Ertz again. So if you're looking for a cheap veteran guy to maybe help you contend for the second half of the season, I'd pay a 2nd-round pick for Ertz.
I love it. And then you segued in because I have a mandatory Travis Fulgham. It's in my contract. Hashtag Fulgham forever. You know, he has to be brought up in every episode. You know, I keep tweeting at him. I'm hoping he responds, you know, that I'm his biggest fan. John, who sticks out of that group to you? Evan Ingram, Hayden Hurst, Hunter Henry, and Mike Gesicki.
Well, I'll definitely give Monk some props. I like the move for Ertz. And we've already seen what he can do. Maybe he comes back a little fresh. It was 2018. He had 116 catches, 1,200 yards, and 8 touchdowns. We know what he can do, and so it'd be worth the move as a contender. You know, I did have Jonnu Smith as well as my 8, and I have a teardrop after that. Hunter Henry, I think, could be pretty interesting with Herbert, but he really hasn't shown it yet in that offense with Herbert. It hasn't topped 50 yards, only 1 touchdown. So I'm a little hesitant on him. The one that's kind of interesting to me is Gesicki. He's been inconsistent too, but remember, Mike, what time it is, right?
It's Tua time.
It is Tua time.
I know.
Could
I
he
was so
become?
excited, and this week
Yeah,
he didn't have
show
it.
us a lot. They didn't need to in week one, in
Yeah.
his first week, right? So might need a little patience there, but I think I could see too, especially as a rookie, needing that tight end security blanket, maybe in the red zone too. Gesicki's very athletic. Could he become a big part of that offense? They traded away Isaiah Ford, so maybe kind of over the middle, they get a little bit more dependent on Gesicki. And so that's the other one that could be kind of interesting. I'm not 100% sold, but I would consider that one too.
Yeah.
Last one would be Tanya. Just to throw that one in. I think that he has established himself as the top guy in Green Bay over Sternberger. And he's, once you earn that Aaron Rodgers trust, you could see Aaron Rodgers continue to go back to him. He had that big blow up game. He's still getting a fair amount of targets. So those are the other ones I would throw out there.
I absolutely love it. You guys are like, that was my next thing. Like, you guys are literally in the huddle here with me. Those are the guys I feel like, you're trying to fill in for Kittle, so you might give a second, and Ertz, to me, Ertz and Hunter Henry and Hayden Hurst are still going to give you a great shot at a championship. I feel like Evan Ingram and Mike Gesicki are guys that you buy low on, and maybe they turn into, the next big thing. Let's talk about some bargain bin guys. I alluded to Logan Thomas, who I'm picking up everywhere on the cheap end right now. He's tight end 13, and he's had some good games. I mean, he's got 21 receptions, 208 yards, 3 touchdowns, but he's had a couple games here where he's been a top 12 tight end. Week 1 against Philly, he had 13 fantasy points. Week 6, 13 fantasy points against the Giants. Week 7, 16 points against Dallas. So you get them NFC East teams. It definitely helps. But I mean, he's starting to really accumulate some targets here and be a part of that offense where there hasn't been a game this year. He has had under 4 targets. He's had 8, 9, 10 targets in games. He's a low key guy that you could probably get for a third that might be able to just keep you good enough if the rest of your team is looking fantastic if you lost Kittle.
I like that one. I'll throw another bargain bin one at you. In tight end premium leads, especially Irv Smith.
Ooh,
The kid is 22 years old. Kyle Rudolph is going to be gone. Minnesota apparently likes to throw the ball more. You could see all that coming together for this kid. I just got him off the waiver wire in tight end premium leagues. I mean,
no way. In a dynasty.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, in dynasty tight end premium. Come on. I got him in an FFPC league.
Everybody really wanted him. Yeah, an FFPC, if you guys don't play, they're fantastic.
Shallower rosters.
Shallow rosters. I play there in the pros versus Joes, and it's a fun format, but sometimes you got to make some tough calls, and I get that with Irv Smith. He was someone in the offseason we all wanted to. He was that hype guy, right? So now we're talking about post-hype sleeper. He hasn't really performed, and he definitely has the talent. I mean, he's a guy that coming out of Alabama looked fantastic. So that's a great one. Mung, why don't you hit us up with another bargain guy here?
Yeah, I'll do you one better. I got 3.
Oh, all right.
Real quick, I'll try not to go over on time here, but Jordan Akins, he's a tight end who we saw getting playing time and targets over Darren Fells the first couple weeks in Houston before he hurt his ankle. He started practicing today, and if he reclaims that number 1 role, he's pretty much free right now. You can get him for a 3rd-round pick, something like that. He's someone who could really help down the stretch. Pure volume play, Dalton Schultz. We know how bad that Cowboys defense is, and whether it's Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, Cooper Rush, whoever it is under center, they're going to be throwing a lot. And those check down targets to the tight end, that could be. It wouldn't shock me if Dalton Schultz finished as a top 12 or so PPR tight end. He probably won't get you any huge games, but that 6 catches or so for 50 yards, 40 yards even, that'll get you a couple wins here and there. And then finally, oh man, I'm blanking all of a sudden. Who's my 3rd guy here?
Well, let me give you one while you're thinking of that one here, because I'm trying to think of a contender kind of guy that you can get for nothing that I think you can get for a 4th-round pick. I'm not going to lie. And that's Eric Ebron. I know Eric Ebron is very touchdown dependent, but if you're a contending team, I mean, we're looking at since week 3, he's put up 16, 7. He had a little bit of a dud in week 6, but 11, 14.8. I mean, those are some nice tight end numbers there where he is really becoming that security blanket for Big Ben down the stretch. And if you look at the playoffs, he gets Buffalo, who's 4th worst against the tight end, Cincinnati, who's 2nd worst. I mean, his schedule is the softest tight end schedule rest of the season. So if you're looking for a guy who has an opportunity, you don't really have a lot of picks left. Sometimes contenders, they throw around their picks like candy, and they probably only got fourth rounders left, or Adrian Peterson type players. Push that fourth round pick, and you could probably get Eric Ebron at least maybe 2 4s or a late third. And I think you get him, and you still have an opportunity to win that title. Mung, do you think of that other guy?
Yeah, and I think this brings us pretty much full circle, given that this is the Kittles Taste the Tight End Rainbow show. Jordan Reed and Ross Dwelly.
Right?
There you go.
Those are two guys who they're going to need to throw to the tight end in that offense. It's Nick Mullen, CJ Beathard, nothing to get too excited about, but we saw CJ Beathard in garbage time target Kittle in that game against the Eagles, 12, 13 times in a quarter and a half. So, Jordan Reed is probably going to be the guy, but we also know that he has trouble staying healthy.
He'll play for a game. Yeah. His only start with Kittle out, 7 receptions, 50 yards, 2 touchdowns. We know he's super talented. He's a concussion away from death. He's definitely looking on that injury list. But I picked up Ross Dwelly, and that was a great point. I got him for, a penny or nothing or $1 in all my leagues. And I feel like those are great additions there, Mung. And speaking of great additions, I mean, I got to thank you guys. You guys are, I love this group, Smash Accept. We formed this several months ago. It's really starting to get some traction. I got some t-shirts in the works. We got a lot of cool things going on. We're talking about, setting up a Patreon for you guys. Keep hitting us up with that hashtag Smash Accept. Guys, why don't you tell them where they can find you guys and anything you're working on right now?
Yeah. Once again, John, you can find me at Dynasty_trades. I got a fever, Mike. Holy prescription.
It's more cowbell, but I'm not even ready for it. Yes, I am. Yeah.
That's it. Love it. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Oh, love it, man. I love having you guys on here. Mung, what's going on with you, man?
Yeah, it's always great to talk with you guys. Again, I'm pretty active on Twitter. I know I missed some questions here and there, but you can always find me at FFA_Mung. That's MENG. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, too, I have a weekly column at Fantrax. Jordan Akins, that was a guy I talked about last week. And, some of the tight ends that we've hit on here, I've talked about in the last few weeks. And, yeah, it's always trading. Stay active in your leagues. We're only halfway through the year.
Yeah, we're definitely 3 of the most active trade accounts on Twitter. If you put all 3 of us on here and one of us doesn't respond, Twitter shut down. Something's definitely wrong. So we really, what I say at the end of every podcast is just enjoy the process. These guys do. I love the process. I want you guys to really just enjoy trading and just take on. And John says it every episode, and I love it. I went through today and I made a trade in every single one of my leagues. Do that once a week. Get into the habit of making trades, because that's what separates redraft from dynasty. And if you're in a dynasty league, convince some of your buddies to join into it. I mean, I got a couple of my friends, then they got friends, and we got a network of 200 people now just from starting a couple people say, hey, why don't you try out dynasty? I mean, it is the way to go. You make the trades. Don't be that owner who sits there and doesn't. You got to be active. You got to be pushing the envelope, make them trades, and enjoy the process, guys.